This last verse that Hanuman was reading about from the Bhagavad Gita, even the wise behave in accordance with nature as it is manifested in them. Yogananda explains in another writing that what this really means is that we have to go with our own nature, but we can attune ourselves to that nature on a variety of levels. And so what we want to do is go to the highest that is in us, the highest that we can perceive, and live in that attunement. So there are many ways that we can approach life, from the gutter, experiencing drugs and alcohol and all of that level of consciousness, or we can have the consciousness of a saint, seeing all as light. I might have told you this story. It was so meaningful to me. It was the story of a man who was incarcerated, probably for some injustice. I don't even remember what the infraction was. It might have been his religion. But he was daily beaten. He was tortured. He was starved. He had a broken arm. They wouldn't set his arm, so he was just left in that state. At one point in his trials, he looked down at his body, and it didn't even look like a human body anymore. It was just so battered, and he was in so much pain. And in that moment, he perceived himself and everything around him as light. And the next time that his torturers came to drag him from his cell and beat him further, he said, from a consciousness of truth, not just, making this up, he said to them, I love you. They dropped their instruments of torture and ran. They couldn't handle it. That pure love blew them away. So we can relate from the lowest level or from the highest level. Transcendence is how we solve all of our problems. It's not through denial or suppression. It's through transcendence. And of course, just to finish the story, that man's world completely changed. Suddenly he was given medical attention, and then he was given food, and then he was released. Swami had sort of a similar dream one time. He dreamt that he was in a room, in a big house actually, with people who would torture him daily. It was just this routine, that was life. You'd get up in the morning and you'd get tortured. And that was his life. And finally, one day, he decided, no more. I'm going to escape. And so he saw his moment and he ran from the house. And then he looked back to see if his torturers were following him. And he saw that they didn't even notice he was gone. And they were just continuing to do what they did best, torture people. And they just continued. And he walked out into the light, into freedom. And that is what we can do too. We just have to lift our level of consciousness. That's what this whole game is about. This whole game of life is about transcending the ego and living on a higher state of awareness. The Beatitudes are a fantastic guide to how we do that. And, written more than 2,000 years ago, translations come and go. It's not the original English. It's not what Jesus spoke. And there's been much change in just the way words are nuanced. So we have to go deeper to figure out the exact meanings, and that's why it's so helpful to have Master with his insight of God realization to help us perceive all the subtleties of what the Beatitudes have to say to us. For example, the saying that we're all familiar with, love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, in the original Greek, it translates to love thy neighbor because he is like thee. That's similar, but it's a little different. And Yogananda goes on to explain he is like thee because not only does he have a form and a personality, but in his soul essence, you and he are one. So we love our neighbors because we are them. There was a Swami in India who used to sign his letters, your own self. So sweet. Because in actuality, it is the truth. So I will very briefly just go through these Beatitudes and give you a little more insight into what the Master says about them. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. When we talked about this a little bit last week, poor in spirit means non-attached to anything in this world, even to our own bodies, our own egos. Being able to transcend even ourselves. There's a story of Ramakrishna who had a sadhu, a wandering holy man, quote unquote, come to visit him, and this sadhu was only wearing a loincloth and he had his staff. And he said to Ramakrishna, I have renounced everything. And Ramakrishna said, oh. And he called one of his devotees to come in and bring tea for them. And she was a beautiful young woman dressed in a silk sari, many gold ornaments, richly dressed. And she humbly brought the tea and then she left. And Ramakrishna said, she has renounced everything. She has no ego. She has humility. And you, even though your only two possessions in the world are a loincloth and a staff, you have renounced nothing. So it's not as though we have to live as beggars to renounce everything, but in our hearts, we have to be non-attached to our home, to our possessions, to our own bodies, our own egos, our own likes and dislikes. Jettison them all. Be poor in spirit. And the corollary of that one, poor in spirit shall inherit shall have the kingdom of heaven, is blessed are the poor, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Because once you give up the attachments, you become pure in heart. And then not only do you see everyone and everything as light, as God, but you see God himself. He comes to you. So, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. The explanation of this one is not so much that we grieve and shall be comforted, but that we long for God. Yogananda has explained to us that whatever desire that we have must be fulfilled. And Swami asked him, even the desire for an ice cream cone? And Master said, oh yes, every desire must be fulfilled. So our job is to have the desires that will lift us. So when the Bible says, blessed are he that mourns, for he shall be comforted, that means long for God. Desire God, and that desire will be fulfilled. Similarly, blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. This means hunger for truth, hunger for right action, and that desire will be fulfilled too, and you will find truth. We have to work with ourselves. We have to change the lower nature into the higher nature. That's our duty in this life. Blessed are the meek. This is an interesting one. For they shall inherit the earth. This is explained as not just being self-effacing, not being just meek and mild and submissive. No, Jesus is talking about great courage in these Beatitudes. So what this one means is be non-aggressive in life. Be even-minded. And if you are harmonious, you will be in harmony with both earth and heaven, both nature and God. So this is a little bit different, and it's more applicable to who we are right now. If we think of being harmonious in every situation, someone was telling me the other day about trials she was going through, and it was with a landlord, and over all the security deposit and all the different money things, and he was being horrible to her. He was being demanding and mean, and she rented from him for years, and he was treating her this way. And she said in herself, I could take this to court, I could just make a big fuss about all this, but instead, I'm just going to give him the money. I am going to keep my peace of mind, and I'm going to give peace. I'm going to make peace the most important thing. And she said it changed the energy completely. He actually did give her some of the money back. But that consciousness of peace is so important. Sometimes I think this world is at war because people like war. They don't love peace enough. They like to fight. So cultivate that sense of peace within the self. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Why? Because they are God's emissaries in this world. Make it a practice to emanate peace, your own inner peace. Give it out in every moment of your life. Become a peacemaker. Be harmonious. Give love. Don't cultivate all the uproar. I have a friend, a very dear friend. She's pretty spunky. And when she was, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 years old, she was in school, and they were having sewing class. And they were all standing in a line with their needle and thread and their little sewing project for the teacher to, grade them or help them with their sewing. And it was a very quiet, warm day. Everybody was kind of drowsy. And my friend just wanted a little action. And so she took her needle and she just poked the girl in front of her. Well, she got action, that's for sure. But sometimes we're just like that in this world. We want commotion factor. We want action and energy. And choose peace. Always choose peace. So let's see here. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Well, this is a pretty obvious one. The more you forgive, the more you are forgiven. To he who forgives much, much is forgiven. And moreover, think of kindness. Give kindness. We don't have, if we start thinking about ourselves and just give love and energy to people, our whole world will change. And the last one. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Stand up for the truth. Don't let anyone compromise your spiritual values. It's not a blessing in itself to be persecuted, but if you are, it is your ticket to heaven if you can stay strong in the truth. Live by the truth, love the truth, and God will come to you. He will change your life.
That little part of the song that we sang at the beginning, Truth Can Never Die. Go on alone, don't look back, just go on alone, reminded me of a scene in a movie that I saw many, many years ago. I don't particularly recommend the movie. It was called The Gumball Rally. A story about a race across America. But anyway, this Italian driver got into his sports car and put the top down. It was a convertible. And as he was about to drive off, he looked and he saw the rear view mirror on the windshield, and he grabbed it and he busted it off and tossed it behind him and drove off into the sunset. We won't be needing that. And, in a way, there's a certain truth in that, actually, because sometimes in life we fixate on the rearview mirror, and something didn't go the way we wanted it to, something unexpected came, and we think, if I just analyze that for a really long time, well, carefully, maybe I'll understand it, or maybe I'll fix it somehow. I remember as a child, as I suppose children will, I got bruised. I mean, I don't know if there's a child who's ever lived who hasn't gotten bruised at one time or another, but I remember trying to understand the pain of a bruise and whether pushing on it would sort of help the process along. So I just sort of poke at the thing. Sometimes I think we do that. It's like there's some angst there, or there's some pain there, and it's like, well, maybe if I sort of poke at it and fiddle with it, it'll somehow get better. And what Nirmala was pointing out is we have to lift our consciousness. We have to lift our awareness. We have to lift our energy. And this is the wisdom that is spoken of in the affirmation also. Swamiji lived this way in his whole life. And I wanted to make mention, yesterday was the 67th anniversary of his meeting Yogananda, and at the same moment, his discipleship to Yogananda. He became Yogananda's disciple on that day, September 12, 1948. And I wanted to bring it up because 67 years ago is a long time. You know, it's for many of us either our entire lives or more than our lives or most of our lives. We can think of that as a long time ago, but that discipleship in a very real sense is our discipleship. Because we wouldn't be in this room if he hadn't embraced a path of discipleship. Discipleship in this world, you know, you don't drive down Highway 80 or Highway 5 or Highway whatever and see billboards about discipleship. It's not one of the things that's advertised in life. Let's go and all be disciples. You know, let's just try to really learn from life. Let's learn to listen. You know, the old aphorism, there's a reason why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's like a ratio there that applies. That's not commonly advertised. That's not commonly sort of put out there in the big wide world. We all want to talk. We all want to be the one giving the instruction. It's somehow thought of that being the guru is where it's at. And Swamiji really wanted to turn that on its head. He was perfectly qualified to be a guru. If he had spent his time in India, people would have, and in fact did, relate to him as the guru. He didn't particularly accept that definition unless he felt it very, very deeply inside, and that was never a public thing. But that sense of being willing to listen, being willing to let life teach you very directly. And I love, actually it's a very beautiful correlation of the affirmation wisdom and this reading. Truth invites, it never commands. God always places the opportunity in front of us. He places the potential in front of us. We can rise to that potential or not. Our choice. We get to choose. We don't necessarily get to choose whether to ride on the train or not. We're on it. But we can ride in the front of the train, or we can ride in the back of the train, or we can try hanging off the back of the train, bouncing along the railroad tracks. It's our choice, but we don't have to live in the lower end of that spectrum. We can choose the higher end of it. And watching him make those choices, it's always a choice of consciousness. I remember him telling a funny example. There, a friend of his at Mount Washington, one of his brother disciples, was very affirmative and very energetic. And he and Swami were having a conversation about something. And Swamiji was saying, well, I can't do that. And I don't remember what that was. This fellow was a very strong, muscular person, and it may have been that he wanted to do some physical thing and he wanted Swami to do it with him, and Swami just said, well, I can't. And the guy said, there is no can't. and Swamiji, now you could sort of be a little offended by that, but Swamiji actually took it in the spirit. He says, all right then, I won't. And, you know, at least he was honest. And I liked that. But he worked with his own nature. And just because somebody was all full of fizz and full of beans and wanted to do something, it's not that he wouldn't go along with it by definition. He would go along with it if he felt it. But if he didn't feel it, nobody could push him. You were just pushing the Rock of Gibraltar. You were pushing the Himalayas. It just wasn't going to happen. I remember when we lived in Italy many years ago, Swamiji could see that we Americans needed a little loosening up. And, you know, the Italian way of greeting is very effusive and very affectionate. And so, you know, you'd have these scenes where 15 people are walking into the room and 30 people are there, and everybody has to kiss everybody on both cheeks. And, you know, this whole, which, if you do the math, that's a lot of cheek kissing. And it's not segregated. You know, the men also kiss the men, which meant that I got to kiss Swami on both cheeks, which I was like, whoa, okay, wow. Go along with this. And he went along with the gag for a while. And then there came a certain point, and it was just like, you know, now we've done that. And we don't have to keep doing that forever and ever and ever. And it was fascinating to watch India and Italy, the cultures meet and sort of go, what are we going to do about this now? Because the Indian culture is very much more reserved and very much more dignified in a certain, and it's not that the Italian culture is undignified, it certainly is, but in its way. But Swamiji could find a way to be centered in all of it. And he gave us a lovely example to follow for our lives, because we can all find center in the middle of whatever it may be. And that's a blessing. That is the blessing that the Beatitudes are explaining and sharing with us in very practical terms. It's the blessing of discipleship to life, whether you feel you have a guru or not, whether you can be bothered or could never be bothered by the idea of a guru, doesn't matter. All of us have a divine potential, and that the truth of that potential is waiting for us. And as one of the readings was saying, if we choose to draw toward it, if we choose to reach toward it, wonderful. And if we choose to hold back, God doesn't curse us. He just simply says, I will wait. Live at whatever level you want to live at. I will wait for you at a higher level. Come and find me when you're ready. That potential lives for all of us. Let's embrace that high path. It's a great, great joy. We're going to sing in a few moments Swamiji's song about the Beatitudes and feel that spirit flowing through, and not just simply as an explanation, but also as an actual blessing of the music and the vibration coming